Hi,
Hi,
how are you doing today?
I'm terrific. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Okay,
Glad to hear it.
so tell us a little bit about yourself in a personal and a cycle in your therapeutic story.
So, personally and professionally?
Yes, yes. Thank you for
Oh,
making me
okay.
sound better.
Yeah. So, personally, my name is Robyn. I am an occupational therapist. I have been married 17 years. I have 2 kids, 2 dogs, and 2 fantastic nephews.
Thank you.
Um, mhm. Professionally, like I said, I'm an occupational therapist. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist, so I work with children. In my particular practice, it's children with mild to moderate special needs. So it's a developmental approach. Um, and I own a small private practice in the Orlando area. I own it on my own, but I have 4 other therapists who work for me. I have another OT. I have 2 speech pathologists, and I have a mental health counselor.
Okay, thank you very much. So, when did you first want to go into the psychological field?
So I've always had an interest in psychology, always, even back to when I was in elementary school. I knew I wanted to work with children. So child psychology was always really interesting to me. But when I went to my college orientation, excuse me, at the University of Florida, I went with both of my parents, and my interest was in psychology, but I also had an interest in journalism because I love to write. And so when we were supposed to break up and go look at our specific colleges, our specific areas of interest, my dad and I went to the journalism building to get information, and my mom was sent to what we thought she was sent to the psychology building to get information. But instead, she came back with information from the College of Health Professions because she couldn't find the psychology building. Yeah. So, College of Health Professions houses many different areas, but one of which is occupational therapy. And she said, "This looks really interesting, and you might want to consider it." So, I did a little bit of research and was immediately hooked. Realized I could kind of combine lots of my interests. I could obviously work with children. I could have flexibility, and I knew pretty quickly after that's what I was going to want to do. So that's where I am today.
Okay, thank you very much. So, what was it like studying for occupational therapy while in college?
Okay, that's a great question. It was hard. The reason being, back in the 90s when I was in school, it was just an undergraduate degree. Now there's no more undergraduate degrees. It's a minimum of a master's degree, and they're moving towards it being doctorate. Well, there already are doctorate levels, but they're moving towards it being only a doctorate. For me, the program was the same as it is now in the master's level, or even in the doctorate level, minus the research piece of it. But all the classes were exactly the same, but they were done during your junior and senior year. So you had to apply during the whole freshman partying thing. And I had to apply during my sophomore year of college, and luckily I did get into the program. They only accepted 60 students at that time per year, and I was fortunate enough to get in. And so junior, senior year were pretty rigorous, but once you get the hang of it, you kind of do okay.
Okay. Now, for our first of the main questions, what do you prefer to take a cognitive, behavioral, or humanistic approach to your job?
So keep in mind that I'm not a psychologist. I'm an OT. So while I use lots of different theories, those are not my main ones. So if I had to choose one of those two, I would say cognitive behavioral, but it's just sort of woven into the other theories that I pull from.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And do you often use the eclectic approach?
Definitely. There's several theories, foundational theories that OTs use, and and I pull from all of them, but the main one being the sensory integrative approach, but also the neurodevelopmental approaches. But I could pull from 2, 3, 4 more just in one client session, or I could just focus on one, at a time. It just depends on the child and depends on the day. So definitely eclectic.
Okay. Now for question number 3. What was your most interesting therapy session like? For instance, like a scary or maybe a comedic session, something. Give us a session that you'll always remember.
I have so many because you have to keep in mind I work with children. The bulk of the kids that I work with are, let's say, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, and they're pretty silly and goofy at that age. So that's pretty awesome. I come home with a lot of funny stories and a lot of awesome stories of improvement and triumph and things like that. Luckily, I feel like I could probably name 10 different things. I can't think of anything specific off of the top of my head. I did have a sad story this week where a sweet little boy who's 5, he is labeled autistic, but very high functioning, came into the office and shared with me that his, I'll say caretaker, it's not his parent, actually grabbed his leg in a not very nice way because he wasn't behaving properly, and hurt him to the point of bringing him to tears. And that's the time where everything else gets put aside. You have to obviously take those words very, very seriously, and of course document in quotes what he said, and then report. I took it to his mother and reported it and documented my conversation with her. So luckily those things don't happen very often, but that was just a couple of days ago, and was made me feel very sad and made my heart very heavy for this little guy. But in general, my therapy is very playful, and so we get lots of playful conversations, which can lead to some silly, funny, goofy stories. But I think, unfortunately, I don't think I can come up with any off the top of my head.
All right. Now, for the most important question of the day, do you believe that your job has affected your patients' lives and will help them be successful in the future?
Absolutely. First of all, I wouldn't do what I do if I didn't feel that way. I've been in private practice for going on 15 years out of my 20, and although during that time I've veered off in different directions, the reason I say that is because if I'm in a position where I'm working with a child, or I'm in a specific job position where I don't feel like my work is effective, I'm going to question that immediately. It's either not the right job for me, or I need to call in some extra support or help. If we are always working towards goals. I have goals set for every single child that the parents agree upon. If we're not making progress towards those goals, my job is to figure out why. But once we do make progress, which of course, again, the kids I work with do make that progress, it's just the most rewarding thing ever. So if I would hate to be in a position where I feel like I'm kind of dead end with any child or any group of children, because then I'm not getting the reward. But obviously, more importantly, if they're not getting the impact, then we need to find something else that will. So ethically, that comes before anything else, is making sure that their needs are being met. And I do feel, because we're making changes to the brain and to the nervous system, that those changes do tend to last forever.
Okay. Since you said you have been working for about 20 years, have you had any very successful moments, or have you had any of your clients become very successful in life?
Heck yeah, it's pretty awesome. And I can think of one child off the top of my head.
I'm sorry, we're breaking up.
Uh-oh. Sorry.
It's alright, not your fault, mine.
All right, can I keep going?
Yes.
Okay, so little boy I worked with when he was in pre-K, he's graduating high school this week. He had pretty significant difficulties when he was 4 and 5 years old. It was one of those kinds of cases where I would work as many hours with this child as needed. It was kind of a 911 case when he came to me. He's now graduating high school this week. I still see him periodically. I see his father periodically. I actually got to see his father this past Friday, and he is graduating high school. He was sought out by schools like Harvard, Yale. He has decided to go to, he's a musician, so he's decided to go to Berklee College of Music, or Berklee College of Music up in Boston, which is a very, very, very prestigious university for people that are seeking out a music career. And this kid's a rock star now. And do I owe it all to myself? Of course I don't. But it's a team approach. I worked closely with his dad. I worked closely with his grandparents. I worked closely with his teachers. I worked closely with his medical doctor as well. And what a success story. And it's so, so, so incredible to see those kinds of stories. Absolutely.
All right. I think that we have covered basically all of our questions. Is there anything else, despite any of my questions, that you would like to add to about, like...
No, I don't think so.
All right, well, thank you very much for everything, and thank you very much for this interview. Please stick around for the post-video reflection, and have a very good night.
You too. Thank you.
All right, bye.